You open this door with the key of reason. Beyond it is another dimension. A dimension of truth. A dimension of freedom. A dimension of joy. You're moving into the land of both the ideal and the real, of the possible and the actual. You've just crossed over into the capitalist corner.
Where reason meets reality, welcome to the capitalist corner.
Welcome to the Capitalist Corner. I'm your host, Michael Liebowitz, joined by my co-host here, Persephone, because Mark is otherwise occupied. What do I got to tell you? Same stuff as every day. Look, what are they called? Super chats, super stickers, greatly appreciated. Not only that, but 2:30 today, we've got Everyday Ethics, and I've got an interesting topic that I'll be bringing up today. And it has to do with a ridiculous hypothetical, and you know how much I like those. But it was from a movie I watched yesterday, so I thought it was interesting. Other than that, Persephone, just let them know what's what.
Please don't forget to follow us on Twitch and also check out all three of the shows on Spotify. And if you listen to the show on Spotify, add it to your library and leave a rating because it helps us in the Spotify algorithm. And please go check out the merch because it's great.
And that's it. That's all you have to say.
That's all I have to say.
Okay, so I want to tell you before we get into the actual articles that I sent you and the various things. So I'm driving. Today I had to go pick up my paycheck early. It doesn't matter why. I've got barking dogs. But that has nothing to do with anything. Let me tell them to shut up. You just...
I don't have barking dogs. Mine are very quiet.
So you yell shut up and they usually listen, although one afterwards will frequently throw in an extra "Rrr," just to get the last word. But anyway, so I had to drive this morning, and when I drive, I put on conservative talk radio. So they're having a discussion about whether TDS, Trump Derangement Syndrome, should be an actually diagnosable mental illness. And the people are calling in and saying yes. And one of the examples they gave is they played the ladies on The View who are nuts. But here's the thing. They've always been nuts. They didn't just get nuts because of Donald Trump. They were always like that. And they were talking about people, I've lost friends because of this. Now, of course, I don't know what these people are doing, right? So maybe they're just losing friends, whatever. I don't know. But I just found it rich because they're like, people are just obsessed with Trump. They just can't let go. And I'm just thinking to myself, okay, this is coming from the party. Google this information for me. I would like to know what percentage of Republicans think Barack Obama is a Muslim. What percentage of Republicans think Barack Obama was not born in the United States? And what percentage of Republicans think the 2020 election was stolen?
So, 43% believed that he was a Muslim. What was the other thing that you said? Not born in America.
Not born in America.
43 is way too high.
Oh, it's not.
23% of Republicans
think he was born in another country.
Yeah.
And what percentage of Republicans think the 2020 election was stolen?
Oh no.
What?
69%.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go to the Obama situation. I remember, and I couldn't stand Obama. Don't think he was a good president. Would never support his policies. I remember in a debate where the woman said that she believed he was an Arab. The current president of the United States, the one who the talk show host and all her guests are defending, pushed the narrative that this guy was born in another country. They need the birth certificate, all that shit. So I'm just curious, like, you're saying that other people are obsessed with Trump while 43% of your party still believes that Barack Obama was a Muslim. 23% believe he was born in another country. And what was it? 69% believe the ridiculous idea that the 2020 election was stolen, right?
Okay,
so
so
do me a hold on, whoa, hold on, please hold on. So do me a favor, please spare me the idea that you're going to diagnose somebody else for being cracked, because let's face it, you've got your own problems. Okay, now go ahead.
So the 69% number actually has come down slightly according to the latest polls.
Okay. All right.
So now it's only 63%.
Thank you, Jenna, for the $2, by the way. Right. My point here mainly is just that there's enough crazy to go around, right? And the idea, and they're all calling, yes, it is, and I've lost friends. But look, I've had family members, when I criticize Trump, jump all over me. And I told my cousin, listen, dude, stop. Like, I'm not trying to, you're my cousin, right? I don't want to embarrass you in public. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to sit here and demonstrate that you don't know what you're talking about. I don't go to your Facebook page, so don't come to mine and do this. And they go insane. So, I mean, look, these people, this knife cuts both ways. And it's not new, by the way. I mean, this goes back a long ways. The going after the obsession with the Clintons, the obsession with Obama, on the other side, Bush and Cheney. I mean, it's nothing new. With Trump, I agree it's exacerbated, but I also think the man is exacerbated, right? When you're pushing that Barack Obama is not born here, or you're pushing that the 2020 election was stolen, or any of the other countless lies that this guy pushes, or the things that he says, the things that he's done, it's elevated. So it's going to get elevated both in terms of the people who defend him and the people who attack him. That's my take. What is your take, lady?
My take is that there has been a lot of like criticism of the other presidents, and I think there is more against Donald Trump, because if you have a man standing at the edge of your driveway staring at you, right? You're like, oh, that's a little bit weird. If you have a man standing at the edge of your driveway dressed in like a caveman suit covered in like lime jello and like waving his arms, you're going to be slightly more concerned, right? Trump just does so much more shit that is insane, and he's so much more vocal about everything, and his big skill is whipping people into a frenzy and being in a frenzy himself. True. So I think that there is more, but it's because it's impossible to ignore him, because he makes sure that you can't. Because if, I don't know, he tweets, like not tweets, what is that weird social?
The truth social stuff.
The other night, he made 53 posts in a row of just like some of the most unhinged things that anyone's ever seen.
Yeah.
So, like, were previous presidents, like, did they have their negatives? Were people against them? Sure. But they weren't tweeting 55 times in a row, like, completely insane things. And just...
You froze. Persephone, you froze, and it's not a pretty face. So I'm going to remove you for a second. When I see you moving again, Persephone, I will put you back on. Yeah, they also were talking about the people that were calling into the show. Hi, Persephone. The people that were calling into the show were talking about how they were afraid to go out because the people are so mad at Trump that they will attack them in public, that they're afraid the anti-Trumpers are going to physically harm them. They're afraid to wear a shirt that says freedom on it. It seems to me that this derangement, again, cuts both ways.
I think it does. So I Googled this. Trump-era polarization is measurably higher. So the partisan gap between Republican and Democratic approval was the largest recorded since they began tracking. His approval ratings are historically unusual.
And historically low. But anyways, I want to just throw this in there before we get to our main topics here, if I can remember now what the hell I was saying. Oh, yeah. There's also the dynamic with Trump where people are, I'd imagine, taken aback, some people, by the fact that, for instance, if you have been a Reagan conservative or a Goldwater conservative your entire life, and this guy comes around and is so different from them, so antithetical to the things that they taught, and the people that you thought were your compatriots, you know, they were your people, are loving this guy and defending him nonstop, no matter what he does. You know, Reagan conservatives, Goldwater conservatives, pro-family, strong national defense, tax cuts, deregulation, you know, very high moral standard type of thing. And then that now you see these people cheering things like tariffs or Trump RX, you know, violating the Constitution. And that also is part of it, because people are like, what the hell are you doing? Like you probably just can't believe that this is happening. So I think that's a part of it as well.
So the thing is, as much as I don't like want to give any legitimacy to like Trump derangement syndrome, I know of at least 3 couples who got divorced because one of them voted Trump, which just seems insane to me.
Oh,
Like,
yeah, I agree. I'm not saying that there aren't people who are twisted about Trump that take it to a far greater level than what it needs to be. What I'm saying is that if you're a conservative, a Republican Trump MAGA talk show host, and you want to talk about how the other side is deranged, it's clean up your own house. That's all I'm saying.
yeah, that's very true. Like, both sides can be a little bit nuts about Trump.
Let me also, something that happened this morning. So yesterday on X, Liquid Zulu posted a video that I'm very familiar with, of Jan Helfeld, who I believe is still identifying as an objectivist. And Jan, he's called the Socratic assassin. And he, through the Socratic method of questioning, exposes flaws in the people he interviews, their reasoning. So he did John McCain, Lindsey Graham, Bernie Sanders, Nancy Pelosi, a lot of these people. And he makes them look very stupid. So Liquid Zulu posts, and he says, anyone remember the time that Bernie tried debating a libertarian? Now, I know Jan Helfeld well. I used to talk to him on the phone on a regular basis. Jan Helfeld and I even interviewed him. He was on my show. We ultimately had a falling out because I would criticize Trump, and he kept wanting to defend Trump over and over, like obsessively. And I'm like, dude, that's it. So I blocked him. I just didn't want to deal with it. I tried to unblock him, and he came right back and did the same thing. So I just said, dude, yeah, I'm done. I blocked him. It's like, if you want to disagree with me, disagree. But when it gets to the point that you're just repeating yourself over and over again, I don't know. And I was new at the time to social media. It just seemed very strange to me. Maybe I wouldn't do that today. I don't know. Anyways, Jan Helfeld is no anarchist. As I'm saying, he's a Trump supporter, for one thing. For two, he, through his Socratic questioning, kind of embarrassed Jeffrey Tucker, who's an anarchist. He also had a debate with Stephen Kinsella, who's an anarchist. So I joked with Liquid Zulu, and I said to him, I'm pretty sure you wouldn't consider Jan a libertarian because Liquid Zulu only thinks anarchists are libertarians. I said I blocked him on Facebook because he kept wanting to argue with me about Trump. And I said, anyway, check this out. And I included a post of the debate between Jan and Stephen Kinsella. Liquid Zulu responds with this, which I find very disturbing. Very, very disturbing. He says, don't care. He was making libertarian arguments. You will all fall in line eventually.
Yeah.
He says, the cult of Ran is over. I will wear the skin of every sacred cow of yours. I told him, I responded, and I in a post, I said, this is not how philosophers talk. This is not how individualists talk. This is how somebody with delusions of grandeur speaks.
Remember, I said about 2 months ago, I
Yes.
said he really gives off cult leader vibes.
Right. Now, I want to just say that a lot of the people that they do that as a joke, you know what I mean? ZZ, and they make that stuff. I don't think he takes it as a joke, though.
No. I also don't think that, I think that some people do it ironically, but, you know, it's such a good way to infiltrate someone's mind. It's such an easy way to acclimate someone to things.
That type of stuff, yeah.
Is jokes.
It's ironic to me that he says the cult of Rand is over.
Yeah, he's trying to start the cult of Zulu.
Meanwhile, he takes the name of her philosophy, although he's not practicing it or preaching it, and wants to make a cult of his own. He could say, no, that's not what he's doing. I'm sorry. You speak like that. Like, I was just kidding, really. I mean, this is not someone you'd think is a libertarian. And to respond in that way, the cult of Rand is over. Dude, I'm pretty sure there's more objectivists than you have followers in your little thing. And you have a bunch of fucking teenagers, right? So I would just slow down a little bit about how powerful you are and how you're, wielding the sort of a sacred wand in this situation.
I am going to wear the skin of your sacred cows is like genuinely cult leader speak.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
Yeah, I don't either. Look, I've debated him like 5 times, and I think I've won every one. And I'm not. I know. I'm not. I'm biased. Obviously, it's me. I'm just saying, when I have debates that I get the sense that I lost, I'm very good at picking up on where I think I went wrong or didn't go wrong. I've never had that sense in a debate with him, ever. So, I'll just put that out there. You can ask a question about it on EE if you want, Akira. Anyway, so this morning as I woke up at, this is what happens a lot of time. I probably told you guys this a million times. I woke up at 4 this morning. So I decided to get to work, and I worked until about 7, and then I went back to bed till 9. By the way, Persephone, I looked up the magnesium, and it seems the magnesium is the thing for me. Given my symptoms, it seems that the melatonin is not right. The magnesium may very well do it. But anyways, back to this. So I come across a post on X from Capitalist magazine, which is kind of, they're objectivist, I guess, but then they're kind of, they're Trumpy. Let me put it that way. They're Trumpy. So they quote Leonard Peikoff with this. After the Democrats are through with America, America will be through. We will end like ancient Rome. The post-American era will be the Dark Ages. So I said, all right. Then I shared a quote from Leonard Peikoff from OPAR, Objectivism, the Philosophy of Ayn Rand, and it says, precisely because of their pretense, the conservatives are morally lower than the liberals. They are farther removed from reality, and therefore they are more harmful in practice. Since they purport to be fighting big government, they are the main source of confusion in the public mind. They give people the illusion of an electoral alternative without the fact. Thus, the statist drift proceeds unchecked and unchallenged. Also, Leonard Peikoff, in the ominous parallels, was comparing America to Nazi Germany in its trajectory. And then finally, in his book, The Dim Hypothesis, he had M1 and M2. So he said there's 3 types of integration. There's integration, there's disintegration, and there's misintegration. Meaning it's an integrated philosophy, but done poorly, or it's not, based on facts of reality. Excuse me if I'm getting this a little wrong. It's been about 15 years since I read the book. Either way, and he breaks down to M1 and M2. M1 is more of a secular misintegration, and M2 is based on, basically religion. And Leonard predicted then that an M2 society was most likely to take hold in America. So basically, religious, nationalists, that type of thing. So I was thinking I would like to ask the, people who like to quote Leonard's article from last year, what do they think is closer right now? The Democrats taking over or the M2 type of society? And I would highly suggest looking at the statements from J.D. Vance, Patrick Deneen, or any of the post-liberals that are seeking to take power in this country. And one of them is the vice president right now. And, so when I was going through that, Persephone, I decided to go out and reread Ayn Rand's awesome essay, Conservatism and Obituary, written, I believe, I want to say 1960. First of all, you read that this morning, right, when I sent it to you?
Possibly. When did you send it to me?
I sent it to you this morning at 5 o'clock. Okay, even if you didn't read it, it's fine. So Ayn Rand opens up and says, both the conservatives and the liberals stress a fact with which everybody seems to agree, that the world is facing a deadly conflict and that we must fight to save civilization. She then asks, but what is the nature of the conflict? And both groups answer, it is a conflict between communism and then she says, and what? And her point is that the conservatives are not actually advocating capitalism. This is in the 60s. And she already put her thumb on the problem, or her finger on the problem, of conservatives not actually advocating for capitalism. She says both sides say they stand for freedom and then proceed to declare what kind of controls, regulations, coercions, taxes, and sacrifices they would impose, what arbitrary powers they would demand. That's also true. She talks about a mixed economy being nothing but a little bit of socialism. She says freedom in a political context, it means freedom from government coercion. It does not mean freedom from the landlord or freedom from the employer or freedom from the laws of nature, which do not provide men with automatic prosperity. It means freedom from the coercive power of the state and nothing else. And she talks about that if one wants to uphold freedom, somebody has to uphold individual rights. I would say you actually need to uphold egoism as well. And she says that basically the liberals have a viewpoint, but that they're advocating their views from. But then in the case of she says, let me just get it right. She says if the liberals are afraid to identify their program by its proper name, because she says the liberals don't want to basically admit what they're trying to do. But she says they advocate every specific measure, policy, and principle of statism, but squirm and twist themselves into semantic pretzels with euphemisms such as the welfare state, the New Deal, the New Frontier, but they still preserve a semblance of logic, if not of morality. It's the logic of a con man who cannot afford to let his victim discover his purpose. But then when she gets to the conservatives, she says, and I want to make sure that I get this correct, that the conservatives try to advocate capitalism based on three ways. And she talks about how they feel guilty because ultimately they're religious altruists, and altruism is not conducive or consistent with capitalism. And she talks about how men would join a movement to fight slavery. Let me find this. Talk for a second. Let me see if I can find it. Do an advertisement.
I've done the advertisements already. Twitch, Spotify. I'm going to talk about the merch some more. I think everybody should go check out the merch. There's some really good stuff. I'm thinking of getting a Live Laugh Lucifer hoodie because I think that'll be cool.
Okay. So she talks about there's three ways that conservatives argue for capitalism. One is based on faith, the other tradition, and one depravity. So the first is based on faith in terms of, religious faith. We still see that today. America was founded on Christian principles. We need the Bible, days of prayer, all that nonsense that we still see. When it comes to tradition, we, of course, had Phil Magnus on talking about this. We've talked to others. We've got this whole idea of heritage Americans now coming on the right. And she says, this is what she says: consider the attempt to justify capitalism on the ground of tradition. Certain groups are trying to switch the word conservative into the exact opposite of its American usage, to switch it back to its 19th century meaning and to put this over on the public. These groups declare that to be a conservative means to uphold the status quo, the given, the established, regardless of what it might be, regardless of whether it is good or bad, right or wrong, defensible or indefensible. They declare that we must defend the American political system not because it is right, but because our ancestors chose it. Not because it is good, but because it's old. Again, echoes of heritage Americans. And she says this, and I think it's absolutely awesome. She says, America was created by men who broke with all political traditions and who originated a system unprecedented in history, relying on nothing but the unaided power of their own intellect. But the neoconservatives are now trying to tell us that America was the product of faith and revealed truths, of an uncritical respect for the traditions of the past. Spot freaking on. The other thing that she talks about basically is that they argue that because men are depraved, so because men are depraved, we can't trust men to rule over other men. This is basically the best we can do. Not very inspiring arguments, not even good arguments. But it's anybody that it was true then in 1960. And let me just tell you, if you compare Barry Goldwater conservatism to the MAGA movement, I would take that right now. Let's implement what Goldwater wanted right now. Let's just implement that, and I would be so happy to do so. Not because I think he was, correct in all his arguments. I think he was bad. I think Rand was correct in her critique of conservatives. I just think it's gotten a lot worse. Sephi.
I didn't read that this morning, but I have read it before. But I didn't read it this morning. That's all just depressing. That's all I have to say. I want to search something. You talk. Give me a
what would you
second.
like to search? Can you tell me?
No, because now I've forgotten. Because you distracted me.
Okay, so don't worry about it. Did you read the stuff on poverty and crime?
Yes, I did read the stuff on poverty and crime. There was a lot of it.
Anybody that does any studying of criminal justice or criminology is sure to come across the view that poverty causes crime. There's the idea of, now I can't remember it, a strain theory where, people, they see other people in the society prospering and they want what they have and can't get it, so they go to illegal means to try to get it. There's the Marxist nonsense about the oppression, standard fare about people that are poor need to commit crimes. Now, I've looked into this issue quite a bit, actually, and there are correlations between poverty and crime, but correlation is not causation. And most people that grow up in poor neighborhoods are not criminals. And there's people that aren't poor that are criminals. In fact, if you look at groups like Asians and Jews that live in poverty, they have low crime rates. So if you're going to say that, well, poverty causes crime, you're going to have to look at that. Well, why? Why would that be the case? Now, some of the mechanisms are, crime leads to, there's other arguments that crime, once you're a criminal, then you can't get a job. So that's an argument that committing crimes actually leads to being poor because people don't want to hire you.
And leads to multi-generation poverty.
Multi-generational poverty. There's things like that. But cultures matter too, right? And I've had this argument a million times in prison with the black guys in prison. Is the hip hop culture, the gangster rap element of the black culture is bad, right? And you can say that's because of poverty, but then again, I would point at the Asians and the Jews. Now, obviously, most black people are not criminals either. So you can't just attribute it to race. I think there's a lot of factors that lead to crime, but I think just blaming it on poverty, and then the next jump, of course, is to try to go to the government to alleviate the poverty. But it's interesting because when the war on poverty kicked off in the 60s until the mid 90s, poverty initially dropped with the war on poverty and then leveled out. So you don't have an increase in poverty. If anything, you had a slight drop, but you did have a massive increase in crime. Poverty is also more associated with property crimes than it is with violent crimes. If you go and you look up the criminogenic needs identified as, the factors associated with crime, poverty is not one of them named by the risk responsivity model of crime. And as a criminal myself, I can tell you, like, I was never saying, it never occurred to me to commit crimes because I was poor. I never looked, and I grew up in a project that was embedded in a rich town, and I never thought, oh, all these other guys have so much money, I want that. It normally just does not work like that. Sephi, what do you think?
I mean, it's something that we have talked about quite a bit on the other show, Crime, Corrections, and Culture. What actually causes crime. So it was actually interesting reading this, having read the other books, because I can see how it might be tempting to say, well, obviously, if you have nothing, you're more likely to steal. But then, if you look at the statistics, and I like that they bring up Zimbabwe and Jamaica in one of them. I can't remember which one it was, but they talked about the amount of murders in Zim versus in Jamaica, and I know a lot of people from Zimbabwe, so there's a lot of them here in Cape Town,
and they're very poor in Zimbabwe.
Yes,
but they don't commit a lot of crimes.
They're better off. It's weird. So a lot of them come here for work because the economy in Zim isn't great, and there's not a lot of work in Zim, whereas there's a lot in Cape Town. So they have better lives in Zim. They've got better houses, better stuff, more, but they've got less opportunities. So a lot of them come to South Africa, and usually to the Western Cape, which is where I live. They come here to work and then they go back once a year. But their lives in Cape Town are significantly worse. They live in poverty here, whereas back in Zim, they have houses and cars, but here they've got nothing. But the opportunities here are much better. But yes, the people from Zim, if you're hiring anybody and you have like options, you hire a person from Zim because they're amazing. They work. They've got really great work ethic. They're usually extremely friendly. But yeah, the poverty is much. They live in more poverty here, but they're not as. They're much less likely to commit crime than the people who are born here.
Oh wow. Yeah, for anybody that really is interested in the subject of crime, criminals, why criminals commit crimes, I highly suggest you check out our show, Crime, Corrections, and Culture. It's on this channel, The Rational Alternative, 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, 3:15 p.m. Eastern Time. I think we do a good job with it, so I really do think that you should be checking it out. I just had something that I wanted to say, Persephone, and now I don't remember what the hell it was, and I hate when that happens.
So can I tell you what I wanted to search?
Yes.
Which I did search. So I wanted to know if the tribalism in America has gotten like markedly worse in the past 10 years.
Okay.
So it has. So the numbers are, in 1994, 17% of Republicans had a very unfavorable view of the Democrats, and 16% of the Democrats likewise. And by 2014, the number had jumped to 43% for the Republicans and 38% for the Democrats. 63%, 62, And in 2022, it has jumped to 62% for the Republicans and 54% for the Democrats. So, and that's like not policy disagreements, and it's more like identity warfare, right? They don't even most of the time disagree on policy. It's just, you're a Democrat, fuck you. You're a Republican, you suck. But the number jump is huge, from 17% up to 62.
Wow.
And then people wonder why everything feels so much more aggressive nowadays, and it's because there's been a huge jump in how much people hate you just based on whether you're a Republican or a Democrat.
Well, you could just join the American Capitalist Party if you're looking for a party of principle and reason that actually promotes freedom and capitalism. What I was going to say before is I forgot to mention at the beginning of the show that, of course, this is Open Question Friday. So we're looking for your questions as well, folks. So please bring them. Ask whatever you wish. If I don't know the answer, Persephone will make something up. So it'll be great.
So Americans with unfavorable views of both parties has risen from 7% to 28%.
Well, that's a good sign.
It is a good sign.
So there was an article today. There was an article in Reason magazine about why does Trump keep bringing up decades-old foreign grievances? And it talked about Iran and that. But the thing that struck my attention or caught my attention was about Cuba, because they seem to be building up to now entering into some type of military conflict with Cuba. And it's like, it's like this idea that Iran's an imminent threat. We have to go to war right now. We can't wait for congressional authorization. It's an emergency. We've been at war with them for 47 years. If you've been at war for them for 47 years and they've never succeeded in attacking the mainland United States, you then have time to go to Congress. I'm sorry. That's just silliness. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. But Marco Rubio says that Cuba poses a national security threat. And he also says the likelihood of a peaceful agreement is not high. So it seems like that, we're perhaps headed in that direction. Trump says that, let me see here. Trump threatens new Cuba crackdown. President Trump dramatically turned up the heat on Cuba Thursday, openly floating the possibility of U.S. military action against the communist island. Trump hinted that he could be the president who finally takes direct action against Cuba. He says other presidents have looked at this for 50, 60 years. It looks like I'll be the one that does it. So we're just went into Venezuela. We're threatening Greenland. Trump took 5,000 troops out of Germany, but I guess he's putting 5,000 in Poland, and our allies seem confused about that. We're at war with Iran. We're running out of missiles, but we're also going to go take on Cuba for, I don't know. I mean, they're designated a terrorist state, and Rubio says that they're a threat, but I don't remember ever feeling threatened by this little island. He says that they're allies, they help the Russians and the Chinese. But we're not going to war with the Russians and the Chinese. We're kissing their asses. So I don't know. It's bizarre to me. I looked up the history. I've read a lot about this, but I wanted to just get a quick sketch, that we have here. So the Cuban Revolution was in 1959. Of course, you had the Cuban Missile Crisis, the failed Bay of Pigs invasion, where we wanted to oust them. I guess there's been several attempts by the CIA to kill Castro. A lot of Cold War hostility that was involved. Obama, normalized relations with them, and then Trump undid that in 2016. So I don't know. Phil says, let's see, UK politically is a constitutional monarchy. Thank you, Phil, for the 20 pounds. He said, new MPs must swear an oath of allegiance to the monarch, which says a lot about the illusion of democracy rights. He says, I see Donald Trump trying to make that fly if he could. Yeah, I think he would. I think that he is still somewhat restrained by what's left of the Constitution and the Supreme Court. It looks like there's some Republican pushback, too, against his slush fund for his supporters. But I just don't see how anybody is buying this, that all of a sudden we need a war with Cuba. From the president who said, no new wars, it just seems ridiculous to me, Persephone.
That kind of, I think that kind of bloodlust is not new. I think that there has historically been a lot of people that believe that America should be, bombing the shit out of all of their enemies. The thing is that sentiment has stayed in like relatively fringe groups. But now what you have is a guy with a lot of power who seems to have that same kind of bloodlust, building on ideas that have stayed on the fringe. That's what I think is happening, because I've seen that kind of thing for years and years and years, but it's always been like a fringe sentiment, but it's existed. And now Trump's just making their dreams a reality. There's a lot of people who think that anything that could potentially pose a threat, even if it took them 100 years, if there's any hint of a threat, that America is powerful enough to just put them down, and that they have the authority to just put them down.
I'm going to send something to you. I want to see if you are able to post this, because it's hilarious, Persephone. I just sent it to you.
So that's what I think.
What? What's wrong? Because I send you something that I want you to post, it becomes an issue. It's hilarious. I could repeat it. I could repeat it myself, but if I do, it's just not going to be as funny. It's a TikTok video of Trump.
But then I have to look at his stupid fucking face, and
but you don't have to really. Just close your eyes and stop being difficult to me, please. There's a lot of problems in this world right now.
I feel like that sentence has been used in other contexts.
What? Don't make this a problem for me?
Just close your eyes and don't make it a problem for me.
Oh, that's sick.
I know.
You have a sick mind. Okay.
I know.
I want everybody to watch this. Let me put this up here.
This weekend, by the way? He'd like me to go, but it's going to be just a small little private.
Just to set, in case the question isn't in here, a reporter asked him if he's going to his son's wedding.
Are you attending your son's wedding this weekend, by the way? He'd like me to go, but it's going to be just a small little private affair, and I'm going to try and make it. I'm in the midst. I said, this is not good timing for me. I have a thing called Iran and other things. That's one I can't win on. If I do attend, I get killed. If I don't attend, I get killed. By the fake news, of course, I'm talking about. No, but he's got a very a person who I've known for a long time, and hopefully they're going to have a great marriage.
So, his son is a person he's known for a long time. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I think he's referring to the wife or to the fiance, but it's not really clear. He's got this thing called Iran. He can golf very frequently during the Iranian war. That's not a problem. But going to his son's wedding, even though his son is a person he's known for a long time.
I saw a video the other day, and it was one of these podcasters that debates people, like they just invite people to debate them, like on Discord and stuff.
Yeah. And
he had someone call in, and this guy was obviously like a big Trump supporter, and he said that but Biden took far more vacation days than Trump, and they were like, no, he didn't. And he was like, yeah, no, they did. Like, he did. And they looked it up, and they Googled it, and they sourced, and they were like, no, Trump took X amount of days and Biden took like half. And he goes, no, well, you can't use that as a source. Like, what source are you using? Ask ChatGPT. So they were like, okay, we'll ask ChatGPT. And they asked ChatGPT, and it gave the same answer. And you know what this guy did?
Said
just
ask
disconnected.
something else. Oh, okay.
No,
I believe that.
he just left. He was like, "Well, if you're gonna prove my opinions wrong, and you're gonna say my facts are wrong, I'm just not even gonna." But he didn't even say anything. Just as soon as he was proved wrong by the source that he recommended, he just went and he left. And that's what these people are like. It doesn't matter if you smack them in the face with reality. They just go, if I can't see it, if I choose not to pay attention, it's not real. That's what they do. They're like, I just refuse to see that he's insane. I just refuse to acknowledge when he does insane things. Stick my fingers in my ear and go, la, 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 la.
If there is a single thread that goes through all of this, through both parties, it's just a lack of reason and a lack of concern for evidence. It's like the lady the other day who told me it's morally wrong that billionaires make so much money, but couldn't tell me why it's morally wrong. Like, couldn't tell me the moral theory that she was operating under. That was just a lady on the street. But then the two people who were, paid to debate the subject couldn't answer the question either, or didn't answer it anyways. And it's very scary to me. I don't know if scary is the right word. Probably a little bit of hyperbole, because it's not like I'm running around in fear. But it is bothersome that people make moral pronouncements all the time that they can't justify. They believe things without evidence. And ultimately, they have power over me. That's bothersome, because they vote and the politicians cater to them. And, we get what we get. And as we've seen of late, people that I would have thought would have been better haven't been. And I just don't, I don't know what's going to come of it all. But I do know one thing. I'm happy. And I'm going to keep being happy. And I'm going to keep coming here every day. And I'm going to keep making the arguments. And by the way, tomorrow we've got the great Megan Ribbons on. Capitalist Corner Saturday, 12 noon Eastern time, to continue our discussion on education.
That's going to be a lot of fun. You know what I think people need to do?
I mean, look, you're talking about being able to watch a show that's hosted by somebody that's very, very pretty and Megan Ribbons. So
it's very true. Very true. Someone who's much more handsome than Jiminy Cricket.
Hey.
So anyway, you know what I think people need to do?
Buy merch?
Yes. No, but seriously, I think people need to learn to detach from their tribal identities, because people need to remember that they're an individual first. You're not a Republican and then a person. You're not an American and then a person. You're an individual. And if you let go of that tribal animosity, then you'll probably find that you and a person you would otherwise have hated probably have a lot more in common than you think you do.
That's Persephone's advice. You know what I just did? And this happens to me all the time. I sent myself an email, because I have to send the email. I don't have to do it this way, but it's quicker if I do it this way. From race, I take the thumbnail and I email it to myself, and then I forget I do it. And I get the notification that I have an email, and I'm happy because I'm waiting for some. And then I go and look at it, and it's from me, and I get pissed.
Yeah, I do that all the time. It's really stupid.
What I want to know is, does the audience have any questions? Because if not, we're going to wrap this up a little bit early on Friday. And Monday, I haven't decided yet if we're going to do a show. I'll let you know. Monday's Memorial Day. So in America, they celebrate Memorial Day. It's to remember the people who have died in war. And nobody's going to work, so everybody's going to be here. It's going to be noisy. Plus, I don't know if the audience is going to be there. You know what? Memorial Day off. I've just made the decision. No show for you. But if you ask some questions now, I'd be happy to answer them. If not, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, we're going to be doing Everyday Ethics. We're going to be discussing this movie that I watched last night called The Nick of Time, or Nick of Time, with Johnny Depp, Christopher Walken. You ever seen it, Persephone?
I think so. Possibly. You know, it's so funny because I had such a good topic as well, but it's fine. We'll discuss it on Tuesday.
Okay. What am I going to do? Do I want to give? Oh, why don't we go over the answers to yesterday's question?
I have them next to me, but Rena wants to know: do you have barbecues on Memorial Day?
I don't, but some folks do. Yes.
So here's the answers from yesterday. So the question was, what would the consequences be of banning billionaires? So Akira says, I think it would be similar to a wealth tax. Billionaires would just leave and disaster would follow. Just imagine all the corporations owned by billionaires closing down, like the Great Depression 2.0, no food for tomorrow. And then Greg Doherty says, it would drive wealth underground, further concentrate power in Washington, increase corruption in government, reduce innovation and productivity, and lower the standard of living for most people. Example of hidden wealth: Stalin owned nothing, but he had exclusive use of vast owned estates. Jenna Kleem says, who is going to ban billionaires and how? And then she says, like, $1 under $1 billion is okay. Stay mindful.
That was it?
That was the three answers that we got to the question.
All right, so what do I want to do for a capitalist thought of the day? What I want to do is say this. I saw a quote this morning from Leonard Peikoff about how bad the Democrats are. I've seen quotes from Leonard Peikoff about how bad the Republicans are. I've lived now through a lot of administrations. I absolutely hated Obama and never thought I could hate a president worse, and then Trump came along. It's clear to me that the answers that I'm looking for are not to be found with Republicans or Democrats. Probably not to be found with any mainstream politician out there. None of them are advocating for freedom. None of them are advocating for capitalism. Advocating for capitalism is what I try to do every day that I'm here, in different ways from different angles. And I would just like everybody to remember what capitalism actually is. It's freedom. It means the freedom to use your mind, freedom to make your own choices, freedom to not be coerced. And with a Memorial Day approaching, I think that it's important to remember that although not always in practice, the way or the slogans and the purposes for all the wars were taught or spread to be that they were fighting for freedom. A lot of people have died for freedom. Whether we've actually achieved it, my answer, we have not. But we certainly have more freedom than a lot of people in the history of the world have. So let's be appreciative for the freedom that we have, for the men and women who have died to protect it and to give it to us. And let's honor them and honor ourselves by promoting, advocating, arguing for freedom, a.k.a. capitalism. Now, Persephone, you can ask today's question.
What are you going to be doing on Memorial Day if you don't have to go to work?
What
Not
half the audience aren't Americans.
Well, if you are American, tell me that. If you're not American, what's a public holiday that you have in your country that Americans don't have? Or a bank holiday? Or I don't know what you call it in your country. In the UK, it's a bank holiday. In South Africa, it's a public holiday.
Whatever.
What holidays? Yeah, what holidays do you have? So Americans, what are you doing for Memorial Day? And then everyone else, what's a holiday that you have that Americans don't?
Awesome. Okay, we're going to be out of here, but we'll be back 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time on this channel. The Rational Alternative is the YouTube channel. We have Everyday Ethics, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time today and 12 noon Eastern Time tomorrow, Capitalist Corner Saturday. Until then, remember to check your premises and peace.